With English idioms, you can precisely express your feelings. You can even add finesse or nuance, no matter whether you're feeling joyful, calm, or frustrated. Now, of course, you can use the words joy, calm, and frustration to describe how you're feeling. However, in this lesson today, I'm going to share with you 21 English idioms to help bring sharp accuracy to how you express the way you're feeling in English. Moreover, it will allow you to increase the level of sophistication in your vocabulary. If you don't already know, I'm Anne-Marie with Speak Confident English. Everything I do here is designed to help you to get the confidence you want for your life and work in English. One way I do that is with my weekly Confident English lessons, which you can find at my Speak Confident English YouTube channel and at the Speak Confident English website. In these lessons, I provide my top fluency and confidence building strategies, targeted grammar lessons, and advanced level vocabulary, just like in this one today. So while you're here, make sure that you subscribe to this channel so you never miss one of my Confident English lessons. Now let's get back to those 21 English idioms to help you express your feelings in English. What makes idioms so exciting is that they allow us to describe something in a precise and creative way. Not only that, but idioms also help us to be concise in our communication. The right idiom can help us describe an extremely complicated emotion in just a few words. For example, if I say that I'm feeling frustrated, that word doesn't fully express whether something is simply under my skin or whether I'm nearly ready to flip my lid. These are two idioms you're going to learn more about today. Recently, members in my Confident Women community explored more than 30 idioms that help us to express feelings of joy, calm, frustration, and even anger. And for you in this lesson today, I've refined that list to 21 English idioms. Together, we're going to explore how these English idioms can be useful to you as you describe your feelings, and we'll discover their subtleties as well. As we go through this lesson together, if you begin to wonder how you can remember all of these idioms and use them effectively in English conversations, be sure to stick with me because I'll share my top strategies to learn and remember at the end of this lesson. Let's start today with 4 idioms that are used to describe a general state of positivity. The first one, to feel sunny. If you're feeling sunny, it means to be outwardly cheerful and optimistic. This typically happens when things in our life line up in a way that make us feel pleased and hopeful. For example, you might be the kind of person who loves to brainstorm. You love sharing ideas and exploring possibilities. If that sounds like you, then this sentence might be a great example to follow. Hannah felt sunny as she brainstormed ideas. Similar to feeling sunny, you might describe yourself as feeling upbeat. When you're feeling upbeat, it means that you're feeling full of hope, optimism, and joy. Now, as I said, this is very similar to the idiom to feel sunny, but there is just a slight difference. A person can feel sunny, feel generally optimistic, and not draw a lot of attention to themselves. It might be a general feeling of joy that they have internally. However, when we describe ourselves as feeling upbeat, it typically means that we are exhibiting our hope, our joy, our optimism in a lively, expressive way. For example, if you hear your favorite song come on the radio while you're driving, you might turn it up and say, "Oh, this song always makes me feel upbeat." And when you do that, it's likely that there's going to be some outward sign of that upbeat feeling. Our third idiom for general positivity is to be in good spirits. When you're in good spirits, it means to feel lighthearted or cheerful while maintaining balance. For example, you may be working on a difficult project at work, And with any project, there are bound to be moments of stress or missed deadlines. However, despite those potential obstacles, you still feel that overall sense of cheerfulness. So a great example sentence you could use might be, the team was in good spirits as they approached the project deadline. And number 4 for general positivity is to be in good humor. Once again, this means to have a general sense of cheerfulness or to be amicable, to be agreeable. You'll often hear this idiom used when someone is feeling particularly cheerful after a difficult or stressful situation. For example, if someone you know recently had a major operation, if they come through that operation and go through their recovery process feeling cheerful and optimistic, you might say, my mother seemed to be in good humor as we strolled through the garden after her surgery. Now, let's continue to our next section where we'll focus on 5 idioms that we typically use to describe feelings of joy. When you feel so happy that you nearly jump into the air, or maybe you actually do jump into the air, you can use the idiom to leap or jump for joy. For example, she couldn't help but leap for joy when they offered her the job. Can you think of the last time you felt so happy that you were ready to jump into the air? How would you use that idiom to describe that moment? Write down an example sentence, and if you want, you can share it with me in the comments as well. Our second idiom for describing feelings of joy is to burst with joy. Let's talk about that verb burst for a moment. Imagine a balloon that is full of air. What's going to happen to that balloon if you take a small pin or needle and you poke the balloon? It's going to burst, right? This idiom figuratively describes that feeling of having so much happiness, so much joy, that you feel that you're about to burst. For example, my niece was bursting with joy as she got ready for her first day of school. The next one, to weep for joy. This means to cry out of pure happiness. For example, if you haven't seen a family member for a particularly long time, that first moment when you see your family member, when you're able to give them a hug, you might be overwhelmed with joy to the point that you start crying, to cry for joy. For example, it was hard not to weep for joy when I saw my brother for the first time after 4 years. Our fourth idiom to describe feelings of joy is to be over the moon. Simply put, this means to be extremely pleased. For example, we were over the moon when we found out we were moving to France. Similar to feeling over the moon is to be on cloud 9. When you're on cloud 9, it means to be overwhelmed with feelings of happiness, satisfaction, and excitement. For example, Rachel felt like she was on cloud 9 when she finally bought her dream house. Our next 3 idioms are focused specifically on feelings of calm or tranquility. And the first one is to be even-keeled. When you're even-keeled, you're balanced, well-adjusted, and calm. Think for a moment about a coworker or maybe a boss that you've had who always stays calm and logical, no matter how stressful a situation might be at work. You could always describe that person as having an even-keeled manner or an even-keeled characteristic. And if you want an example sentence, you might say, my coworker Susan is always even-keeled, no matter how stressful the situation might be in our office. The second idiom that we can use to describe feelings of calm is to be as cool as a cucumber. Have you ever gone to a spa and had slices of cool cucumbers placed over your eyes? Why do they do that? It brings an immediate sense of coolness and calm. And this is a wonderful idiom to use when you want to describe someone as being perfectly calm, perfectly composed, despite the circumstances. For example, as she got ready to go on stage for her presentation, Carrie was as cool as a cucumber. And our third idiom for describing those moments of staying calm is to keep one's cool. I love this idiom. To keep one's cool means to stay calm in a difficult situation. This is particularly important for anyone in the customer service industry. And a great example sentence you could use with this idiom might be, I felt frustrated by the constant questioning, but I kept my cool all the same. Okay, so far we've had idioms to describe general feelings of positivity, idioms to describe feeling joyful, and idioms for feeling calm. Now we're going to transition into idioms that we might use to describe moments of frustration or even anger. Let's start with 3 English idioms we can use to describe those moments of irritation, annoyance, or frustration when things get difficult or don't go the way we expected. The first one is to get under one's skin. This is one that I use at the very beginning of this lesson today. If something gets under your skin, it means that you are annoyed by someone's behavior or their communication. Here's an example sentence. Despite trying to stay calm, her teenage daughter's behavior got under Elaine's skin. Think for a moment about behaviors at work. Is there anything that someone does that irritates you, that annoys you? If so, try using this idiom to describe it. Describe what happens and how you feel using the idiom to get under your skin. After you do that, share it with me in the comments below. And now let's go on to the second idiom to describe frustration. To push one's buttons. If someone pushes your buttons, it means that they do something or say something in a way that aims to get some kind of a strong reaction or an emotional response, typically negative. For example, when I was younger, my brother knew exactly how to push my buttons and get me in trouble with our parents. And number 3, to be on edge. Earlier, I used an example of someone remaining as cool as a cucumber just before they go on stage to give a presentation. The opposite of that might be to be on edge. When you're feeling on edge, it means that you're feeling nervous, anxious, irritated, or frustrated. And usually this is exhibited in some kind of behavior, like pacing back and forth. So just like I used the idiom cool as a cucumber to describe how someone appeared just before giving a presentation, I could use this one as well. As she prepared to go on stage and give her presentation, Carrie appeared to be on edge as she paced back and forth. Now that you have idioms to describe feelings of frustration in English, let's move on to what you might say when those feelings of frustration transition into anger. We have 3 idioms we're going to learn focused on feeling anger, and then we're going to move further with 3 idioms that we use to describe uncontrollable anger. So when things really reach their limit. Our first English idiom to describe feeling angry is to lose one's temper, or simply to lose it. If you lose your temper, it means you lose your composure and you visibly show anger. You're no longer able to keep it inside. For example, my mom lost it when she found out I failed my test. Can you think of a moment when you lost it? In other words, you lost your composure, you are no longer able to keep your cool, and instead you showed your anger. If you've had a moment like that, try using that idiom in an example sentence of your own. Our second idiom for describing feelings of anger doesn't necessarily mean that you exhibit anger. You don't necessarily show it, but you do take some kind of action to help you stop those feelings of anger. The idiom is to be triggered, and we use this to describe our emotional response to something disturbing. It might be something disturbing that we see on media or at a social event. It could also be something that brings back a negative memory or experience. So the moment that disturbing image comes on the computer screen, or the moment that we hear something disturbing, we have this immediate angry response. And as a result, we might walk away from the situation or turn off the TV or stop watching a movie. For example, watching the movie triggered me, and I couldn't finish the rest. I had to turn it off. English idiom number 3 for describing feelings of anger is to lash out. This means to suddenly attack someone, either physically or verbally, out of anger. For example, she lashed out when she found out she lost her job. Before we get into a few final tips I'd like to share with you on how you can learn and remember these English idioms so that you're able to easily use them in English conversations, I want to finish with 3 more idioms. And here we're going to the very extreme of strong anger. And the first idiom we'll use here is to blow a fuse. This simply means to become extremely angry. For example, Jamie's aunt blew a fuse when she found out the family wasn't coming over for Thanksgiving this year. Now, before I share my final 2 idioms, I want to pause here for a moment and reflect again on why idioms are so helpful. At the beginning of this lesson, I highlighted that yes, we can use the words joyful, angry, or frustrated to describe our feelings. However, again, if I use the word frustration, I felt frustrated at work today, it doesn't really tell you the extent of my frustration. Was I mildly frustrated and mildly angry? Maybe something got under my skin a bit? Or was I frustrated enough that I became so angry to blow a fuse? This is where idioms become particularly helpful, adding that sophistication and nuance to our speech. Now, let's finish up with our last 2 idioms and some tips on how to remember these easily so you can use them in your English conversations. The next idiom is to go ballistic. This one is quite strong and even has this violent feeling to it. It means to become extremely angry and to show signs of rage. For example, fans went ballistic when they found out their favorite player was cut from the team. And finally, our last idiom for today is to flip a lid. I love the imagery of this idiom, even though it's quite negative. I want you to imagine a pot of boiling water with a lid on it. And then imagine that pot becoming so hot that the steam and the boiling water result in flipping the lid off that pot. Now, think about that in terms of the kind of anger we might feel inside. To flip one's lid means to become angry in an uncontrolled way. For example, my supervisor flipped his lid when we didn't meet our sales target. Now that you have 21 English idioms to describe feelings of joy, calm, and frustration, let's quickly talk about how you can remember these and use them naturally in your English conversations. If you've been following me for a while and you've watched some of my other lessons on learning vocabulary in English, these steps will be familiar to you. The first thing I want you to do is to choose 2 or 3 new idioms from this list today. I recommend choosing only 2 or 3. It's important to limit how many idioms or expressions you try to learn at any given time. Select the 2 or 3 that are most interesting or helpful to you. And then I want you to immediately think about how you would use those in your own example sentences. Apply those idioms to your real life. Doing this will help you to remember how to use them in a practical way. Now, the next step is I want you to do the same thing with the same 2 or 3 idioms for an entire week. I know that seems like a long period of time, but the key to learning something and remembering it is repetition. And this is the biggest mistake I see students make. They learn something one time, they practice it one time, and then they move on. Giving yourself the opportunity to repeat using the same key vocabulary over a short period of time will help you lock it into your active vocabulary. So I want you to have your 2 or 3 idioms from today's list. Give yourself time to make an example sentence today, and then tomorrow do the same thing. Create an example sentence, or maybe even try to use that idiom in a conversation that you have with someone else. Over the next week, I want you to go back to the same 2 or 3 idioms again and again, using them as often as you can. This will help you to remember them so that in 2 months or 6 months or a year from now, you're able to use that idiom accurately. You haven't forgotten it. As always, if you have example sentences, you can share them with me. I would love for you to do that in the comments section below. While you're there, take time to review examples from other students as well. This will give you ideas of how to use these idioms in your own life. If you found today's lesson helpful to you, I would love to know. Make sure that you give this lesson a thumbs up here on YouTube, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss one of these lessons. Thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you next time.